Hi everybody, very happy to meet you again. Hope the previous module on learning theories should have facilitated you to understand how learning occurs in young children. Today, let us have an insight into the social and emotional development of children. The module on social and emotional development is formulated with the purpose of providing an interesting tool for early childhood educators to understand the basics of emotions and social patterns that are to be exhibited by a child in his early years. Moreover, this module would elaborate you on the theories associated with the manifestations of early emotions and the social tie referred to as attachment. The learning outcomes of this modules would be to recognize the pattern of social behavior from 0 to 6 years, to understand how the attachment behavior serves as a basic social tie for an infant to develop better relationships later in their life, to realize the concept of emotion and its emergence from infancy through early childhood years. And the last learning outcome would be that to apprehend the origin of emotion and its related behavior by theories, namely James Lange physiological theory, Cannon-Bod neurological theory, Schechter and Singer's theory, and cognitive appraisal theory by Lazarus. Now, let us see about the social development during early years in this first half of the module. As you all know, the term social development refers to the ability to behave as per the social norms and expectations. Though very easy to define the process, the social life has to occur by 3 strategies. The first strategy is learning to behave in socially approved ways, for which every child should become aware of what is expected from them socially and then try to model themselves in line with the approved behaviors. The second strategy is playing approved social roles. After becoming aware of what is expected from them, every person right from childhood need to exhibit customary social role or roles. These are said to be approved roles. The third strategy is the development of social attitudes. While exhibiting the approved social roles, better social attitudes develop as and when the child likes and trusts people around him. This will facilitate him to make better social adjustments and an acceptable member in the group. Though every person learns these strategies to socialize, it is still important to understand the social behavior of children during their early years. Let us look into it under 2 heads, namely 0 to 2 years and from 2 to 6 years. The foundation of social behavior is laid by several aspects such as imitation, shyness, dependency, attachment behavior, acceptance of authority, rivalry, attention seeking, resistant behavior, and social cooperation. But the most important foundation to be dealt in detail is the attachment behavior. Now let us see about the attachment behavior and its development. Attachment is considered to be the first social tie between the infant and his mother, and it serves as the foundation for all relationships later. The term attachment is defined as a strong affectional tie that humans feel towards special people in their lives. This tie helps every human being, from infant to old person, to feel pleasure and joy, which gets even more strengthened with close interactions and by the comfort of nearness at stressful situations. Infants, before their first birthday, become attached to familiar people who look into their physical and stimulation needs. This is the reason why babies cling closely to the mother, patting her face, exploring her hair, kissing and snuggling against her body. Though the process of attachment seems to be a normal reaction of a human being, it has led to an intensive theoretical debate. However, 3 theories of attachment are worth to realize and to understand. They are behaviorist perspective, psychoanalytic perspective, and the ethological perspective. Let us see each of these perspectives in detail. First one, the behaviorist perspective. From the perspective of behaviorism, attachment is seen as learned response. Among the various views of behaviorism in the context of attachment, the most important one is drive reduction account of attachment, which believes that feeding is an activity which plays a pivotal role in infant-mother relationship. For example, a hungry baby who is crying, the primary drive here in this situation is hunger, is lifted by his mother and fed, resulting in satisfaction of the hunger need. When this happens several times, the baby wanted her presence even when not hungry to get relieved from distress. This desire for presence becomes a secondary drive or learned drive, and the baby now prefers all positive stimuli like the caresses of the mother, warm smiles, and tender words of comfort. However, these theories do have certain pitfalls. Though we realize that the mother is the first attachment tie of a baby strengthened by the feeding context, the bondage does not rely only on satisfying his hunger. Also, this theory does not explain the reason for persistent attachment relationship over a longer period during which the attachment figure is not present. For example, think about your feelings of attachment with your mother, whom you have not seen for a year as you are away from your home for your studies. Is the feeling of attachment the same? Maybe it would have been strengthened, but for sure not decreased. Hence, a theory on drive reduction failed to give explanation of certain significant attachment of human beings with reference to time and space. The second theoretical perspective, psychoanalytic perspective, came to forego these pitfalls. Erikson and Freud's perspective of attachment provides a stronger view of the attachment bond compared to that of the first perspective. The psychoanalytic approach also do emphasize the mother and infant relationship as a first attachment bond, but argue that it is the quality of the mother's interaction with the baby that decides the degree of attachment. These theories also stress upon its belief that once the infant develops a trust in his mother that she will satisfy his needs, he could explore his environment confidently for a shorter duration of time. Consequently, the child will form an inner image of his mother and rely on that image for support in her absence. Hence, the psychoanalytic perspective concludes that the attachment is an important aspect in allowing the child to master over his emotional and cognitive skills by facilitating his need for exploring the environment. Though this perspective is accepted to a certain extent, it has got two major criticisms. As per in Freud's oral stage, just like behaviorism, it focuses only on feeding as a critical aspect in the attachment bond. As per the Erikson's perspective, he talks only about the mother's contribution to the attachment, but never speaks about the infant's contribution towards the bond. To overcome these weaknesses of behaviorist perspective and psychological perspective, ethological perspective of attachment came into being. The third ethological perspective is framed by John Bowlby. The ethological perspective formulated says that the emotional tie of an infant with his mother and has become a widely accepted view. He based his theory on the assumption that the evolution of human behaviors is based on its promotion of the survival value. Bowlby's theory is framed with the belief that human baby, unlike other animal species, is born with a set of inbuilt behaviors that facilitate the parent to be nearby in such a way that the chances of infant being protected from danger increases. Bowlby made us understand that the attachment has got its own biological roots, with survival of the species as most critical rather than the feeding aspect as focused by behaviorists and psychologists. As already mentioned, Bowlby's theory talks about the infant contribution to the attachment bond. Hence, infant's relationship to the parent are innate signals that call the adult towards his side. Eventually, with the support of emotional and cognitive skills, warmth and responsive care, a strong affectional bond is formed. The attachment bond develops through 4 phases, and each phase elaborates the contribution made by the infant as well as the mother and its resultant outcomes. The first phase is pre-attachment phase, which gets initiated at birth and extends up to 6 weeks. Here the infant contributes to the attachment through the inbuilt signals such as smiling, crying, grasping, looking into adult's eye. Mother in turn contributes by picking up, stroking, patting and talking softly. Hence the outcome would be that the response of adults and infant reinforce each other. It is also believed that an infant could recognize his mother's smell and voice at this period. However, during this period, the attachment gets only initiated but not developed. Hence, the infant does not mind even when the mother is not present. Then the second phase is the attachment in the making phase. Here, the infant contributes by starting to show variations in his response to a familiar caregiver, here mothers preferably, with that of a stranger. By 4 months, the infant smiles, laughs, babbles more freely with his mother. And moreover, a crying baby is quieted more quickly when picked up by his mother. The mothers contribute by providing the infant with a sense of trust, by fulfilling his physical and emotional desires. Hence, the outcome was that the infant started to experience relief from distress when his mother is nearby. Though they can distinguish between his mother and other people, they still do not protest in the absence of the mother figure. Then comes the third phase, which is called as the clear-cut attachment phase. It starts at the 8th month of the infant and proceeds up to 18 months. In this phase, the attachment bond becomes very clear as the baby starts to express separation anxiety. Separation anxiety is defined by the baby getting upset when the mother, whom he relies completely, leaves the place. In this phase, the toddlers contribute by protesting the mother's departure and deliberately monitoring her presence by following or climbing on her in preference to others. And the mother in turn contribute by providing emotional and social warmth as before. With an outcome of that, the infant starts using his mother as secure base in this phase and in turn explore the environment for a while and return back to the base for emotional warmth. With this, the fourth phase comes into being, which is called as the reciprocal relationship phase. It gets initiated by 18 months and extends up to 2 years and even beyond. Now, the improvement in cognitive representation and language skills allow the toddler to realize the factors influencing his parents' presence besides him. Thereby, the separation anxiety of the third phase declines. Here, the toddler contributes by negotiating with the mother with requests and persuasions to change her goals instead of crawling or clinging to her. In turn, the mother responds by accepting the toddler's requests and persuasions along with providing emotional and social warmth. The outcome in this phase would be that the toddler could better understand the reason for his mother's absence and in turn try to withstand the absence for a brief time. Overall, by going through these 4 phases, a child constructs an inner representation of its attachment bond with his mother. This inner representation, as an image, serves as a model and guide for all other interactions later in their life, even as an adult. Hence, this bond becomes a very critical aspect towards their personality development. After looking into this attachment or the social tie, I know you are wondering how this attachment or emotional tie between the mother and the child could help us understand the teacher's or parents' role in the whole of the early years of children. To understand this, certain research findings that have provided strong evidence for the theoretical view of attachment are presented to you in this slide. The theoretical view is that the healthy attachment tie creates a feeling of affection and security, which in turn supports the overall psychological development of a human being. Certain consistent research findings supporting these theoretical view are: The Frankel and Bates study, they had told that the quality of attachment tie between the mother and the infant is related to the cognitive and social development in early childhood. The preschool children who had experienced a secure attachment in their infancy stage are found to be enthusiastic and persistent in problem-solving tasks. Also, they are found to have positive relationship with peers. The second consistent research finding is that by Fagot and Kavanaugh in 1990, who said that an infant who had experienced an insecure attachment showed serious adjustment difficulties in their preschool age. Thus, these theories of social development with particular reference to emotional tie and its supporting research evidences suggest the need to create a warm, caring and responsive environment for every infant as it influences their overall development in their further stage. To sum up about this attachment, the drive reduction and the psychoanalytic perspective of attachment pays more attention on feeding and treats infants to have a passive role in forming the bond. But Bowlby's theory has appreciated the active role of the infant in forming the emotional tie. Now, the social behavior during 0 to 6 years should be seen. The social behavior patterns manifested by a child in preschool years are cooperation, rivalry and generosity, desire for social approval, sympathy, dependency, friendliness, unselfishness, imitation and attachment behavior. However, they also do indulge themselves in unsocial behavior patterns like negativism, aggression, quarreling, teasing and bullying, ascendant behavior, egocentrism, prejudice and sex antagonism. However, opportunity should be provided to every child to involve in interactive play with peers, as it is this age they begin to establish peer relationships. Preschoolers view friendship as concrete and activity-based relationship. With this, at the end of the first half of the module on the social development, I hope it's well understood of how the social development of children in their early years gets initiated and developed with certain behavior patterns. The second half of the module will explain how emotions work and develop among children. To understand the emotions of children, its emergence, development and behavioral patterns, let us understand the theories put forth on how emotions occur. Emotional expressions and its related learning gets initiated at a very early age, as children from their infancy period discover a wide range of emotions and its expressions. Hence, emotional development is considered to be a complex task that begins in infancy and continues into adulthood. This part of the module aims to provide you a better understanding of the concept of emotions and its values, theoretical perspectives underlying it, stages of emotional development during early years, and the factors influencing emotional competence. First, let us look into the concept of emotions. Emotion is defined as a complex pattern of bodily and mental changes that include physiological arousal, feelings, cognitive process, visible expressions, and specified behavioral expressions made in response to a situation perceived as personally significant. Moreover, emotions are largely considered as a conscious phenomena that involve more bodily manifestations and vary along a number of dimensions, namely the intensity, type, origin, arousal, value, and self-regulation, etc. But why do emotions matter? Emotions do have certain values. The first and most important is that though emotions are reputed to be antagonists of rationality, they have a central place in moral education and moral life through conscience, empathy, and certain specific moral emotions such as shame, guilt, and remorse. Second value is that the emotions determine your personal viability by preparing you for action. Moreover, the emotions regulate social interactions, both by means of verbal and non-verbal communication. Fourth value is that the emotions shape our behavior and make life worth living by adding value to experience. The fifth important value is that The emotion allows us to respond flexibility to our environment in the way of approaching good and avoiding bad. Now let us understand about the theoretical perspectives on emotion. This part of the module would help us to understand the basic assumptions and beliefs of various theories put forth on emotional development. But just before they, let us brainstorm ourselves with the following question. Now the question is, does your heart pound because you are afraid, or are you afraid because you feel your heart pounding? Here, the heart pound is said to be the physiological arousal, and feeling afraid is the emotional experience. In support to the first question comes the physiological theory of emotion proposed by James Lange, and the second question is supported by Cannon-Bard in their neurological theory. Now let us see each theory in detail. The first one is called the physiological theory of emotion, formulated by James Lange. The assumption of this theory is that the emotion occurs as a result of physiological reaction to events. Here the situation is that you happen to see a strange animal. Your heart starts pounding and you interpret this physical response as fear. My heart is pounding, therefore I am afraid. This is the James Lange theory. But looking into the Cannon-Bard neurological theory of emotion, with the assumption that feeling of emotion and experiencing physiological reaction happens simultaneously. The belief of this theory is that the emotion results when the thalamus sends a message to the brain in response to a stimulus, resulting in a physiological reaction. Consider the same situation of seeing a strange animal. Once you spot a strange animal, your brain sends this message to the thalamus and it gets activated, wherein the heart pounding and the feeling of emotion, that's a fear, happens at the same time. Is it all about emotions? What about the cognition or the thought process that gets involved in the expression of emotions? To understand the involvement of cognition in emotions, one another theory called cognitive theory of emotion proposed by Schechter and Singer comes into being. Schechter and Singer theory of emotion assumes that an event causes physiological arousal, but that you must then identify a reason for the arousal before you label the emotion. Here in the same situation, the bodily reaction of pounding heart would be the same for two different situations. One situation, let it be coming across a strange animal as you saw in the other two theories. And the second situation is that a person whom you like most proposes to you. But the difference lies in how your brain labels a bodily reaction cognitively. Though the cognitive theory of emotion very clearly indicates that the cognitive thinking precedes the emotion, a controversy still exists. Does cognition precede the physiological arousal? Also, how does this cognition happen? To answer to these two questions, a theory called cognitive appraisal theory, put forth by Lazarus, gains significance. Now let us see about the Lazarus cognitive appraisal theory of emotion. The assumption of this theory is that the emotion-provoking stimulus triggers a cognitive appraisal, which is followed by the emotion, and then the physiological arousal sets in. Consider the situation. Here, the stimulus of love proposal is being appraised as a cognitive process of how this situation affects your well-being, either consciously or unconsciously, with insights of your goals, beliefs, practices, desires, and intentions with external circumstances. Then the emotion of either love or fear sets in, after which the physiological response of pounding heart occurs. In sum, the theoretical framework of emotional development is a combination of physiological, neurological, and cognitive appraisal of situations that produce emotions. The order of events might change over time as a child matures and as a response to various environmental interactions. Hence, emotion should be considered from a bioecological framework wherein a dynamic child is embedded within the cultural and social context. As emotional development reflects the social experience, the next section of the module deals with certain important milestones of emotional development of children of 0 to 6 years, in relation to social interaction. Emotions do play a prominent role in how effective babies and preschool children express their feelings and recognize those of others. It is the emotion that helps them to establish a relationship with their parents, explore their surroundings, and discover themselves. However, the establishment of emotion and its development follows a common pattern in almost all children of various backgrounds. Let us see them into two subheads as emotional development during the first 2 years and from 2 to 6 years. Emotional development from 0 to 2 years starts with the development of basic emotions. Few basic emotions like happiness, surprise, fear, anger, sadness, and disgust are believed to be present right from birth. These emotions change in intensity and frequency as change in age occurs. For example, happiness changes to social smile before 10th week and then to laughter by 3 or 4 months. By 7 months, the emotion fear manifests itself as stranger anxiety. The second aspect is the understanding the emotion of others. At the end of the first year, we can expect a child to understand the emotion of others as social referencing occurs. Social referencing is defined as a way how a baby seeks emotional information from the parents, particularly in a strange situation. The third process is appearance of complex emotion. Certain complex emotions like shame, pride, and embarrassment appears when infants start combining those basic emotions initiated at birth. And now let us see about the emotional development from 2 to 6 years. The first process is that deeper understanding of emotions takes place. With the improvement in the self-concept and vocabulary development, the preschool child understands his emotions as well as those of others impressively. By the end of 6 years, the children would be able to judge the exact cause of basic emotional reaction. Then they get into the emotional self-regulation. It is otherwise referred as the ability to control one's own emotion. With a rapid vocabulary development, they become aware of several strategies that help them in controlling emotions. And to conclude, this module on social and emotional development of children in the early years, hope would have given you a clear insight of the pattern of the social and emotional behavior commonly observed in children of 0 to 6 years, with special focus on how the attachment behavior had served as a basic social or emotional tie for an infant to develop better relationship later in their life. Also, this module would have facilitated you in apprehending the origin of emotion and its related behavior by certain fundamental theories of emotion. Hope to meet you in the next module. Thank you.